Judy Dumont. I'm the director of the Massachusetts Broadband Institute.
Hi, and I'm Tim Scott, Vice President with Axia NG Networks USA.
Welcome to our second show dedicated to all things broadband in Western Massachusetts. Today, we'd like to give you an update on how the Axia MassBroadband123 project is progressing, key milestones that we've met, and new ones coming up. We'd also like to take a closer look at how the next generation network will transform the libraries in the region. We'll talk to someone from the Massachusetts Library System in our second segment. The MBI was created by Governor Patrick and the legislature to close the digital divide in Massachusetts. And there are three fundamental building blocks to help us to do this. First, we need to extend the broadband infrastructure to those communities that don't have full coverage, and most of them are here in Western Mass. Second, we need to make sure that all homes, businesses, and institutions have access to the high-speed internet technology. And finally, the last building block is to make sure that all citizens know the benefits of broadband and know how to use it. Axia MassBroadband123 is a 1,000+ mile fiber optic network that's being built throughout Western Massachusetts. This network will connect over 1,300 community institutions, such as schools, libraries, towns and state office buildings, and public safety entities. This is a very first step and a very important one in closing the gap, and that will be our focus today. As you know, we received a federal grant back in June of 2010, and we were given 3 years to complete this project. So as of November 1st of 2012, we'll have exactly 242 days to complete the federal portion of the project. And at this point, we're on track to complete all of the construction by this deadline. We hired Axia to operate and maintain the network once it's up and running. Tim, do you want to remind us of Axia's role on this network?
Sure, thanks Judy. Yes, Axia was selected by the Commonwealth to be the long-term operator of this new fiber network infrastructure, just as we've done elsewhere around the world with other government-led network initiatives. Operations of this fiber infrastructure involve adding and operating the required electronics, providing all ongoing maintenance of the network, and providing other things such as security, control, and access to the network when needed. Axia also seeks opportunities to expand the network by adding further fiber extensions to connect various customers that we do in conjunction with our service provider customers. One aspect of our approach that's rather unique is that we're a wholesale-only network operator, so that the customers that we support, our customers on this network, are the service providers that use this infrastructure to retail services to the marketplace. These service providers provide services across the network, to example of the 1,300 community anchor institutions that you already mentioned, and today we'll hear more about how the library sector will be served as a specific customer group as well. We currently have in place 26 agreements with different service providers to ensure that they can purchase various bandwidth products across the network, they can obtain the correct technical and product information and ongoing support as required as they deploy services on this network. The service providers that serve our end users and anchor institutions across the Axia Mass Broadband network are a diverse range of providers. Everybody from small mom and pop type wireless providers here in Western Mass to larger providers that are based in some of the larger cities in central and western Massachusetts, to regional providers that might serve New England that are based in Eastern Mass, and also indeed some national brands. And all providers are looking at a way to expand their business by providing services across this new fiber infrastructure.
It's been great to see, even though we're 6 months out, 7 months out, the activity and the interest of the service provider community to come on and use the network.
It has been very exciting, Judy. This external outreach has been a big part of our job, and also internally getting ready as an organization for full network operations in the summer of 2013. It's been an exciting and a busy time for Axia. Another key part of that we've been doing on a daily basis is engaging with the MBI, engaging with your other private partners to ensure that this new fibre infrastructure is both designed, built and successfully deployed across Western Mass. One area, Julie, that I know has been of great importance to you is ensuring that this new fibre infrastructure can get successfully built and attached to all the poles across Western Mass.
Yeah, that's right, Tim. And I know most people who have ever heard me speak know that that getting on the utility poles is such a critical part of the project, and one that I talk ad nauseum about. Just as a reminder, in order to build our network, we need to get permission to put our cable on over 32,000 utility poles. And these poles are owned by Verizon, National Grid, Western Mass Electric, and several other municipal electrics. And before we can get that permission, they need to make sure that there is room on the utility pole, and it's actually very well described, and it has to subscribe to the National Electric Safety Code. And if there isn't room to safely put our network cable on the utility pole, then work has to be done, and this work is called make-ready work, to make sure that there is room for us. And it's a multi-step, multi-organizational process, and each utility pole of the 32,000 has to be looked at individually and adjustments made to each and every one of them. It is a very long and arduous process. The good news is this work is coming to an end, and we're almost all done and will be done by the end of the year. So very soon, Tim, you and the rest of the folks here in Western Mass won't have to hear me talk about Make Ready, because it will be behind us. And it will be all systems go as it relates to allowing our construction team to get out there and put the fiber on the pole. As of this week, we've already applied for and paid for 100% of all the pole work to be done. We have to do that in advance. And we've been able to release over 550 miles to our construction crews so that they can start to do the work. And to date, they have already installed 130 miles of fiber on those utility poles. And that's mostly along the stretch from Springfield out to Great Barrington. And that will be the first part of the network that becomes available. Another key area is connecting the community institutions. And what we mean by that is we will be bringing fiber into each of these buildings of over the 1,300 institutions and installing the electronical equipment necessary for those institutions to connect to the network. And then when the network is finished, the electronics will be turned on and the institutions will be able to gain access to the network. We're on track with these installations as well. At this point, 100% of all the buildings have been surveyed, inspected, and designed, and over 60% of the buildings have had their equipment installed. We actually had to begin that installation process back in January of 2012, and that will continue right up till June of 2013, because there were just so many buildings that we needed to get to. We needed to start that back in January of this year. And many of the community institutions, the folks will ask me, well, I've got the network or the equipment installed, do I get service soon? And the answer finally is it's coming soon, but for those that got their equipment installed in January, it's been quite a long wait. The network itself will become operational in phases during the first half of 2013. We already have portions of the network along I-91 and the network back to Boston in operation and in use today. Axia is providing services to a couple of customers who needed to get access back to Boston. The next segment, that one from Springfield to actually Sandusfield, is slated to become operational in the February of 2013 timeframe. The other segments will become operational between March and June of 2013. And once we get rolling, you'll start to see during that time lots of announcements about what areas and what buildings and institutions are now able to use the network. If you'd like to track our progress, you can check out the Axia MassBroadband123.com website, where we have a tracker which provides that information. And now that we're getting close, you'll really be able to track the number of miles complete, number of buildings complete, and when we're targeting to be operational.
Thanks, Judy. So after a quick break, we'll turn our attention to how this network will transform community institutions in the area, and we'll start with libraries. As a reminder, this network connects 1,300 anchor institutions, and we're going to learn more about how the network can transform the library sector. Libraries play an important role in the community, including leading the way for no-fee public internet access, serving as a central meeting place within their community, and providing the option for digital literacy training.
We'll be right back. Welcome back. I'd now like to introduce Tone Nunez from the Mass Library System. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
We'd like to really now take a look at how the Axia MassBroadband123 network will transform the over 120 libraries that we'll be connecting. Before we dive into that, why don't you tell us a little bit about what Mass Library System does?
Sure. The Massachusetts Library System is a member organization. It's about 1,700 plus libraries, and not just public libraries. It's also law libraries and academic libraries. And it's a state-supported collaborative, which its funding is actually administered by the Massachusetts Board of Library Commissioners. And we also have two offices. We have one in the western part of the state in Whately, and we also have one in Marlborough, Mass.
Great. So why don't you talk a little bit about what you're doing to prepare the libraries for when this network goes operational?
Sure. The preparation is me. That is my role, actually. I'm what library community knows my position as a circuit rider, which mainly just means that I'm a technology advisor that goes on the road to each individual library. And part of what MLS is doing is they brought me on specifically due to MBI. And I go to each library, assess their current technology, which I have to tell you is usually very low, and find out what will be needed when fiber reaches them. You know, a lot of these libraries still have very antiquated equipment, and MLS, through grants, will be able to provide some assistance with that for the 30 plus libraries, though 123 will be connected.
Great, great. And we know why it's important, but maybe you could talk a little bit about why this network will be important to the libraries.
Sure. Number one is it keeps libraries relevant. And I don't know if you've gone to your local library lately, but some of it's very hard to look at because you realize they're very behind in the technology that they have in the western part of the state. And also it's kind of an equality of infrastructure. If you look at the eastern part of the state, you know, I lived in Boston for a while. I thought, oh, the western part of the state has exactly all the rest of this like we all do. And they don't. That's a lie. So in the western part of the state, you actually find that there's such underserved library community that has absolutely no access to it currently. And you know, and over 62% of the libraries are the only provider for internet service in their communities. And that's why you see people sitting outside in the parking lot, you know, using the internet service.
Yeah, very common here.
Right. It's right now, last year in 2011, there was about 154,000 computer users in Massachusetts libraries per week.
Wow.
So to, you know, picture that, that's a lot of people. So to picture that these people are on kind of an antiquated system of possibly dial-up is just painful to even think about how long this is all taking.
Yeah. Well, it'll be interesting to see once the network becomes operational here in Western Mass, how those numbers will increase. Because my guess is that the majority of those internet users are today in the eastern part of the state.
Exactly, exactly. And you know, now I go to different libraries and I see, you know, 1 or 2 computers where when fiber gets there, it actually could expand it to 3, 4, 5 because the bandwidth will be available to them.
Right. And this is an important point, Judy. It's not just about fiber and the bandwidth availability that's now coming to the libraries. That's obviously a huge step forward for all these libraries that we're connecting. But it's also about the underlying fiber infrastructure enhances the quality and the reliability of the service that the libraries will be able to offer. So today they're certainly challenged by, for instance, some still being on dial-up access, some being on satellite access and dependent on weather conditions. So this is about a bigger pipe delivered with all the right quality and also ensuring that it has a reliable option for the libraries to enhance their services.
And I do think it is about equality, and I'm glad that that's how you're thinking about it, because that is one of the things that we know in working on this project here in Western Mass, is that there really is an inequality when it comes to the network and internet infrastructure, and we need to change that. And certainly the governor has led that charge.
Exactly. I think the picture that I always have in my mind about the western part of the state to the eastern part of the state is some of the libraries that I'm visiting in the western part of the state don't even have running water. So to now say...
We won't be fixing that.
Well, I mean, there's nothing wrong with, you getting a wrench and getting out there.
Right.
But I really think that it just shows more of where the priority's been placed. And it's really in the eastern part of the state. And now Western Mass, it's a game changer. We're able to catch up.
Absolutely. And you've talked a little bit about it, but what do you see as the biggest benefits of that the network will bring to the libraries?
Besides just the speed, we're really looking at a whole area of the state that hasn't been able to participate in digital literacy. And a lot of people don't know what that means, and I didn't either. So it really more is online training availability. Something to consider is about 92% of the people that walk into a library are looking for a job. And if you have a dial-up service, you really can't compete with the eastern part of the state if you're applying for jobs online, because that's where it's going to be. There are about 3,000 children computers that are being accessed. And right now, they don't have great access to things like videos they may need to watch or participate regarding school. I mean, right now, my nephews, all of their homework is online, and I'm amazed by that. But you still have to make sure they do it, though. So I think that as we kind of expand, librarians get one piece, which is they're able to expand what they have in-house, whether that's the number of computers, but then patrons actually get to participate in that. And patrons really are just you and me.
And I know in the eastern part of the state, well, actually in Central Mass, my mom loves to download books from the library.
Exactly.
And so can you talk a little bit about ebooks and,
Sure.
the digital downloading?
Sure. Ebooks is just a big, explosive topic, and it really takes the whole library community to another level. Ebooks, how it kind of works, and there's some debate right now about what's the best way for it to work, is you're able to, at home or at the library, at home you would go through the library's website, and at the library you could physically there use their ability to download a book, put it on your device, whether that's an iPad or a Kindle or a Kindle Fire or any of that, and then at the due date, and this is very important, especially for me who pays amazing amount in fines, the due date, it goes away, so that it's now back to the library to lend out again.
Interesting.
I think it's been really quite interesting to hear how this network can be a game changer for libraries in the region, and certainly we think that the network can absolutely keep libraries relevant and keep them relevant in their communities and relevant for their patrons, particularly now with the new infrastructure connecting over 120 libraries in Western Mass. And what we've seen from other global initiatives, and we've seen this up in Alberta in Canada, is some libraries will take the opportunity to even go a step further and transform the services that they offer to their patrons. And we've seen some libraries, for instance, now use these types of NGN infrastructures to offer video conferencing services as a service that they can offer even if they're based in a rural library, but because now they're on that fiber network, they can use that infrastructure and offer quality video conferencing options for their patrons.
Exactly. I think my goal in assisting these libraries is to see the library become a community center as well. Because I think people are so focused on digital that that's a great tool, but the library itself as an institution is crucial. And if you haven't stopped by your library, stop by it, because it's amazing to see the things that they're doing with so little. And they need more.
And on the video conferencing, one of the things that that I've learned from Alberta is that there's so many uses for it. It's not only, it might be that you could have an online training from somebody in another part of the state, or businesses might be able to use it for doing selling instead of doing the travel, or educational series. And I think it just opens up a world of possibility.
Job interviews is another example.
Exactly. We find that in the western part of the state, I grew up in the state, that in the western part of the state, people love the area. But in order to seek employment, often they have to go somewhere else. Bringing a high-speed solution to this area actually might be able to allow people to stay in their communities, work, and prosper within their communities rather than having to abandon them.
Yeah. So I think I know this, but you've been working with the libraries for a while now, and positive response to the network coming in?
Oh, Judy. It's actually like a birthday gift every day, just talking about it, because you have to realize what little libraries have. I'm always shocked when I go into a library and find that just the basic things that I would have at home, they don't have. And the patrons, such as you or me, going into the library would expect these things. I expected them. I went into the libraries thinking, oh, I'll do 2-color printouts of this, and it doesn't even exist. So to say to them, we've heard you, we actually are listening to you, and the partnership between your organization and MLS and MBLC and all these other organizations that have a hand in bringing up the bar for Western Mass is really finally making sure that they were heard.
Absolutely. Well, we're thrilled to have the Mass Library System as a partner in helping us transform the libraries and the region. And we really do look at what your role has been as a model that we would recommend to other institution segments like schools or public safety, because it's very key to help these institutions get the biggest bang for the buck from the network. So thank you, and I really look forward to working with you as we continue on.
Well, thanks to both of you, and please visit your local library if you haven't gone. Really take a look at what they're dealing with.
We will.
And there's no reason you can't make a donation.
Right. So that just about does it for the show. We have a very busy 6 to 7 months ahead of us. We'll probably be back again after the first of the year, Tim and I, to give another update. And we'd like to conclude the show by playing the video of all the great things that are possible with the Next Generation network that we're building. Tim, good to see you again.
Thanks for having me, Judy.
Yeah,
Great to be
and
here.
thank you all for watching. See you soon.
It's amazing how far we've come, from a letter to a telegram, to a phone call, to an email, and beyond. Something within us drives the need to stay connected. Next generation networks are like a multitude of invisible threads closing the distance between one another. They allow us to connect with each other and with our world in ways that we are just beginning to imagine. Don't believe me? Let me show you. When my son Matthew was assigned a project on his favorite dinosaur for science class, he was able to access a wealth of interactive information, all because his school was connected to a next generation network. Using the network, he and his class were able to take part in a virtual dig for prehistoric creatures. My sister Melissa fell in love with a small town boy a couple of years ago. They just got married this spring. Now, I didn't think anything could pull her out of the big city, but he did. And now they live in a small rural town. She makes the most amazing jewelry. But when she started to plan the move, she was worried that she would lose the personal contact with her customers and that business would dwindle. Not wanting Melissa to give up her dream, her husband signed up with their local internet service provider, who uses a next generation network to provide high-speed broadband services to the community. With access made possible by a next-generation network, Melissa now does business through her online jewelry store with customers from around the world. My dad hadn't been into the city in years. He always said if it was anything really important, they'd bring it to him. Until he was diagnosed with an acute heart condition. After his surgery, we were concerned that he might not be able to make it into the city every time he needed a follow-up appointment. But because our local medical clinic is connected to a next-generation network, Dad can go to his family doctor and connect with his specialists in the city using high-definition video conferencing. My husband, Adam, now runs the farm that's been in our family for generations. And he's been exploring new ways to use technology to stay competitive in today's global market, including the possibilities of next-generation networks. When he began exploring the capabilities of the network, he found that he could manage the business and connect with customers and suppliers in a whole new way. For example, using sensors and other equipment installed inside our grain silos, Adam can monitor and manage the conditions inside to ensure our product is world-class. Then he can share that information with potential customers using face-to-face video conferencing while he shows them our entire quality management process. How do I use a next-generation network? I work as a first response team dispatcher for rural communities. With access to this network, I can help the teams in a critical way. The connectivity allows me to coordinate quickly and efficiently, providing maps and data as to what type of emergency they're responding to can be the difference that saves a life. What will you do with your next generation network?